If you're looking for a child rearing or a main character that's a child, there's this really cute webtoon that is kind of different from a lot of them, but is also similar in terms of the adults that are around the children are so well adjusted that I'm just so happy for these children to grow up with these people. And there are misunderstandings, but there's reasons for them. It's not just like miscommunication. There are hidden reasons that certain things happen. I'll go into it more. Um, anyways, the webtoon is called The Villainess is Shy About Receiving Love. Um, it starts off with our main character being someone that's reincarnated in a new world, but her old world, it's kind of very similar to her current world. In that world, she essentially was an orphan, or I believe she was an orphan, yes, and she was alone for a long time, and so she really enjoyed this particular book about a lost child being taken back by her father and then like growing up to be happy, stuff like that. And then so she ends up actually reincarnating into this book or a world similar to it. It's better to say maybe a world similar to it, but she thinks it's a book, it's the book itself. Um, and she ends up being the daughter of the villain, quote unquote, that picks up the main character after her mother dies. So her mother, the main leads in this case, the female lead, she is the daughter of a slave trader. And so her mother gave birth to her. She actually was from nobility, but she ended up being kicked out of her family. And so she really hates her daughter, who's the main character. Her name is Melody. So Melody is hated by her mother. She kind of is very meek by nature. So she does everything she can to satisfy her mother, but that's not going to pan out well. Anyways, her mother, being a slave trader, finds the original female lead, Loretta Baldwin, after she gets into a carriage accident with her mother. And so she takes everything from the carriage, all the noble quality products like the clothes and stuff, and the little girl because she finds she's alive and just plans to sell her because noble children go for a lot. You know how it is. Anyways, that's when she really figures out and she kind of realizes that she's also a villain in the story because in the story, the daughter of the slave trader was just as awful to the main character Loretta as the mother, and so they both ended up being executed. And so she decided she's going to do everything she can not to end up that way. She also tries to advise her mother to not treat this child in that way, but she kind of already knows that her mother is she's not going to accept that. She's going to do whatever she wants because prior to even finding Loretta, she would try to advise her mother. The moment she found out she was actually in a novel, she tried to advise her mother to not be a slave trader anymore, that it could end with like her death and stuff. And her mother just like slapped her and told her like, whatever, I'm going to do what I want. You know, she's a toxic parent. So it is what it is. You kind of have to get through this part in order to really enjoy the story, and a few other awful adults that abuse children or bully children for I don't know what reason. Like, what are they getting out of bullying a child? We'll get there. So then she takes in Loretta. She takes care of her for I believe it's like a month or two until the Duke can find the child. He doesn't know for sure that this is his child. They have to do a paternity test with the priest, but of course, Melody, knowing the story, knows that this is his real child. Anyways, what ends up happening is that he comes in, he kind of like takes um, Loretta away and also puts the mother in jail because they had a fight previously where her mother essentially like she responded badly or she responded honestly to her mother, which is something what a toxic parent you don't really do. And her mother ends up throwing like soup all over her, and also like almost hurting Loretta. And so she had to sprint to the doctor's that lives across the street, not across the street, across the neighborhood, in the woods, um, to try to get medical attention for Loretta, even though she's clearly injured herself. Her mother is just awful, awful, awful. Anyways, this is when the Duke comes in, and then so she gets back, and by this point, the Duke and like the authorities have come in and taken the slave trader and taken Loretta, but Melody's nowhere to be found. The doctor's trying to adopt her. She's like, you know what? Don't go back. Just live your life with me. Da da da. but she does end up going back because she wants to get some stuff from her house, and that's when she ends up meeting the Duke because Loretta didn't want to leave without her. There, oh my god, Loretta and Melody's like I can just call it a love story is the cutest thing. They are so in love with each other and it's just so adorable. And Loretta is just the most precocious and adorable child I've seen in a webtoon in a long time. You're really just gonna enjoy her personality. Melody is just super sweet, but Loretta is just like her with Melodies. They kind of just like symbiotically make this webtoon just great. All the other characters are also pretty great, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, so they end up now living together. She is taken in to be a guest under the Baldwin Dukum, but they have a lot of retainers that are against this. And at first, they're against Loretta because they think that she's a fake. That's quickly like shown to be false. Like Loretta is his child, so they target Melody because she's a child of a slave trader, which I don't understand. I can understand like old concepts of like the past where somehow a parent's sin is also the child's sin. I don't agree with it, but it was something that was done in the past. And even now, some people have that old mentality. But in this case, they're legitimately bullying a child. The things they would say, I'm going to put them up because the things they would say to this poor little girl was just like unreasonably evil. Like, you say this to a literal 11-year-old to their face and you think you're like so high and mighty. You're punching down in the worst way. Um, and it was just like not one adult, it was several. And there's an instance where her mother's in jail and they try to essentially kick her out the moment that Loretta is proven to be the Duke's child by giving her money and dragging her essentially by her, almost like her hair, like clutching her little hands, just like pushing her into this carriage, hurting Mrs. Higgins, which is the head attendant, and getting into this. I don't understand why they thought this was okay. Putting a literal child in a prison in order to also make her guilty of a sin that she never committed. And her mother is just so invested in the money that they're giving her after finding quote unquote Loretta, like the money they gave Melody, that she doesn't care at all. All she cares about is the money. And so thankfully, the Duke comes because they put Melody in chains and they pushed her into a cell. This child did absolutely nothing. And if anything, she helped like protect Loretta from her crazy mother, she was being abused by the way, because there's a lot of scars and stuff on Melody's body that the head attendant Miss Higgins sees. Oh my god. Anyways, you're just gonna have your blood pressure up to here in the beginning, so you just gotta make it through the first few chapters. I swear it gets so good. The Duke comes, right? Thank God. He essentially confronts his retainer because he's like, what are you doing? But he also doesn't know if Melody does want to be with her mother. So he's asked her, like, do you want to be with your mother? I can take her out of jail and like kind of pardon her and like allow you to be with her and give you some money if that's what you want. I love the fact that he asked. He never like imposes it on her. He kind of just asked because he wants to make sure. Because you also don't want to take a child away from their parents, even if their parents is off if the child wants to be with them. I know it's like a twisted kind of thing, but it is the reality of life. Anyways, happy he asked, and she says no. I don't. She kind of gives her mother the coins, and then you see how she reacts. Like she sees the money bag as more important than her own daughter. So that was like cemented to the Duke. Oh no, this lady does not care at all. I'm taking care of this child, which is what I really appreciate about the Duke. He's very well rounded. He appears cold, but he's very family oriented. He also has a lot of empathy and sees children for what they are. Like they're innocent, they're not guilty of any crime. So I appreciate his interactions with Melody. And I think he would have probably adopted her if it wasn't for Looney, the second child, being like, no, I don't want her to be my sister. Mostly because he kind of he has a crush on Melody. So we'll get into that though. Very cute. Happy for her that she found this family because her mother was, ugh. But we'll get back to the mother because unfortunately we got to meet her then. Anyways, so now all the bullying that happens, she's finally free of it, you think. But unfortunately, now that there's another retainer who is the servant, or not the servant, the apprentice of the other dude who pushed Melody into a prison, he now like starts destroying the things that she's being given by the Duke. And he kind of comes around again with his child, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Because this kid was really, really cute. I liked her character setup, but he was just so awful and he ruined that child because she's just as twisted as he is. But anyways, um, so is at this time when we're introduced to Cloud Baldwin, one of the oldest of the children. He's a very serious siscon, so he doesn't like Melody in the beginning just because he's jealous of her. I see his interactions with her as fine, mainly because he's like standoffish and seems like a little cruel. But when Melody dropped the kettle that was full of hot water, he protected her. He also seems to like to bully her, I think, because he might actually also have a crush on her, which is proven true later on. Um, so and then of course comes back around the apprentice, which I mentioned before. He, the things he was saying to a child, she's shameless, all this other stuff. When he was the one that essentially uh, destroyed the stuff that the Duke gave her to try to like make her seem like she's irresponsible and stuff, like she doesn't appreciate what's being given to her to try to get her kicked out. Which again, what is well, I guess now I understand why they try to kick her out so they could replace her with one of their children as the playmate for Loretta. But honestly, y'all just sound loony at this point. Also, I like that Melody stood up for herself even against these adults because she says, I had no idea a grown up would come into a child's room and ruin my ribbon. This is the level that these people, like, that's how petty these people are. And it made me so sad when, even though like Miss Higgins like fixed it for her, she still wanted it to be pristine in the way that it was. She was thankful, but like she felt guilty for even feeling that way. And I felt so bad and so sad for her because, like, no, you're right to feel that you wish someone hadn't come into your room and destroyed something that was given to you. And this isn't like the first time, this is like the second time this has happened. Ugh, who destroys things for a child? Anyways, so more cute interactions with Loretta, more interactions with Cloud, which kind of are so cute and just is like a fun time. And then, of course, now we have the mother. The mother decides to come back around and request that Melody goes into the prison and spends time with her as her final wish. She's essentially trying to repent so she can go to heaven. This happens a lot even now where criminals have like a final wish. Some of them become very religious or convert in order to like save quote unquote their souls. I don't know. Anyways, I'm happy when she first says she doesn't want to do it because she doesn't want to be hurt. And this is also when we meet Isaiah, who is her childhood friend, the child of the doctor that she ran to in the beginning. Super awesome guy. He was kind of her protector, not kind of, he was truly her protector in the village because, of course, as a slave trader's child, she was not liked by any of the children. She was considered like a bad influence or just like evil just for being the child of this woman. And he was always protecting her, and she was always hiding away, like not trying to make waves. So he always wanted her to fight for herself, also always wanted to understand that she deserved happiness. So I really liked his character, even though he kind of does something going forward that we're kind of like, oh, you're doing too much. But he accepts it very quickly as her choice. So what he ends up happening is that Melody wants to find out her birthday because she doesn't know where it is. Her mother never told her. And she decides to go visit her mother. So she asks her. And Isaiah doesn't want her to do that. He doesn't want her to be hurt again. So he gets in the way. And then he has to be restrained and taken under custody by the other knights and under the dukedom because he's preventing Melody from seeing that. And Cloud didn't like that. But of course, I think Isaiah figures out where he was wrong in this pretty quickly. Anyway, she goes sees her mother to ask about her birthday. Of course, her mother doesn't know. All she knows is that it was a huge winter storm and she was pregnant, and the court and no one will allow her into the house, although she was like going through like labor, and so she doesn't know. Unfortunately for Melody, and it's very heartbreaking because it really showed how little she cared about her daughter. But we kind of already knew this, and it kind of helped Melody close the doors between her and her mother, like close that entirely and disconnect from her, which was good because we have a moment where she's like, "Goodbye, mother," and that's it. Um, Good for her. I mean, she's very, very strong for her age. If you think about, although she is a transmigrator, so I guess so. But even so, she's been living with this woman, and even adults are kind of triggered and meshed by their parents. So anyway, so now we are gonna figure out sort of her birthday because she's very sad about it. And then Cloud kind of finds records, which is very important because it hints at her future career. So she ends up figuring out her birthday from the records in the duchy. It's somewhere in March. We don't actually get to see it, I think, because we wanted to celebrate her birthday. Um, and I'm so happy for her. This happens a little later though, because we have more interactions with the Duke where they're like trying to make her feel better, and he's trying to hint that he wants to buy her clothes and stuff, but she doesn't get it. There's this cute moment where he's like using a mail catalog for her to like find these cute clothes, and it's like beat up, and she doesn't get it. She's like, oh, I'll get it for Loretta. And then the other kids trying to make her better, like Louis saying, I don't want you to go, you don't have to go home, I enjoy you being here. And then we also learn a little bit about the backstory about the duchy between the mother and the father, and kind of like their marriage contract that ended up becoming real love, although they ended up separating, which we'll know more about the future. But they kind of brought this up because we're now going to meet little Jeremiah, who is the third child. He is a magician, a very powerful magician, and he has very bad first memories of his mother saying she wanted to kill him. But of course, we all kind of know that's like, oh, her mother, his, like, according to Loretta, the mother, or at least we're assuming that the mother is pretty a good person. So it's very odd for her to say that. So we already know it's kind of like a mixed understanding. At first, I'm thinking it's like miscommunication, but it ends up being she really did say this, but it's for a particular reason. And you can start suspecting from the beginning why that is, particularly because they start talking about pieces. So pieces in this world are also like future magicians that have a bowl that is broken, and so their power goes out of control and they can potentially harm the people around them. They can significantly they can cause a big major issues in their environment. Like they can accidentally kill their family members, they can destroy buildings, and it's all out of control. And they don't even notice it until things just start going weird. And so the mother, this is a spoiler, she is a piece, and so her powers were going out of control by the time she had Jeremiah, because he was born with so much magical power that it triggered her own. At least that's what I'm assuming happened. And so now she is putting her child in danger because she can't control her power. She's broken. She's born with a broken bowl. So there in this world is not yet a cure for this. There's no way to control it. So she decides to isolate herself and leave. But the problem was that in that moment she was leaving, she told the Duke, I might kill this child, or I will kill this child if I stay here. But all Jeremiah heard was, I will kill this child. And so he now believes that his mother hated him. And now in turn, he hates his mother. He hates all his siblings. He hates his father. He doesn't want to stay with them. He wants to now drop his entire last name and just become a magician, a full-term magician. He still hasn't acquired his title of a magician, and mainly is because his master, he is part of the royal family, and he also abandoned his family, and he doesn't want him to go to the same thing. So I really appreciate the adults around these children, because they all really want the best for them. And so that really makes all the bullying that these children like face and all the pains much more manageable, I guess, for the audience. So something I forgot was actually the reason Jeremiah was even being brought up is because Loretta ends up like experiencing trauma, like PTSD trauma, that she goes to sleep for a long time because they're playing hide and seek, and so she can't stand thunder because of the carriage accident. And she was also in a carriage hiding, and so Looney feels really bad about this because he was the one that told her, oh, hide under the carriage, Melody won't be able to find you, right? So then it starts thundering, and then they find her, but she's already had like a traumatic episode, like a PTSD episode, and so she ends up going into her mind. And then this is where Jeremiah goes in, but he goes in with Melody because Loretta grabs onto her hand, and this is when we learn that Melody's magic. It's not a lot, but it's very warm and it's very unique. And so through that, he's able to get into Loretta's brain, like mind, and it goes smoother than he thinks it is, but he suspects it's because of Melody. But anyways, in there he meets his mother, and he realizes, oh, this is the reason my mother left, and this is the reason why she said those things. It was never that she hated me. He doesn't say what it is. He doesn't even tell his siblings, but he's smart enough to understand it is what it is. And in this world, being a piece, if someone finds out that you're a piece, they essentially demonize your entire family. So it makes sense why the Duchess would just leave and make it seem like she's sick, and kind of like have, because they also he noticed in Loretta's memories that there was no servants in the house. And that was to prevent anyone from finding out, especially because it would ruin the lives of her other children. And so all this stuff allows Jeremiah to see that he was never an unwanted child. And we have a moment where he kind of talks to his father and they have like a heart to heart. And it's very nice to see this. In that it wasn't resolved in like a super grand kind of way. It's more like he realizes from what's happening in reality by looking through Loretta's dream, instead of it being constantly being like the Duke never tried to convince him of anything, because he also couldn't say anything. He's trying to actually find a cure for this, so he doesn't want his children to be stigmatized, so he kind of holds his tongue and he will support his children, even if that means that they want to drop his last name and never see him again, because it's better that than they knowing that their mother was a piece and that becoming public and then having the ramifications of all that, particularly for a magician. But also just telling your child that, because the reason is hinted is that like her powers went out of control because of Jeremiah's super big power. Like he's a very amazing, like naturally innate magician, and so it would also make Jeremiah feel that his mother's situation was his fault. So he was also trying to protect him from that. So he'd rather become the villain than let his kid see that. And so I don't know if that was the best way, but I do see the kindness behind it, and I'm happy it was resolved. So now after Loretta comes back, she wakes up and everything else, they now have this cute little get together where they're celebrating multiple things. And the one that actually does the party stuff is actually Looney, who I was like, oh, that's pretty, or Loney. I'm going to call him Loney because Looney sounds bad. Loney, he's the one that designs the entire party. And I was like, that's pretty impressive for a child so young. I think he's like 9 or something. And so I'm like, okay, these Duke children really, they're very advanced. Anyways, he makes this party that is very cute about like the foods that everybody else likes. He does this mainly because Cloud realizes something that Jeremiah realized about a specific date. So the children are always trying to figure out what happened on June of a certain year. And that's when their mother left, because that record is removed entirely from the duchy. And so it seems that Jeremiah figured it out, and Cloud picks up on that. And he kind of confronts him in a way that Jeremiah didn't feel comfortable. And it's kind of very like, you should tell me what it is. And so it kind of broke communications between them. And Loney, being the middle child, is trying to kind of piece together the family. He's pretty much the glue of this family in a lot of ways. Like, he's very empathic. I appreciate him very much, and he is very good at understanding people's emotions for a child. And so I appreciated the little banquet he put together. It was very nice. He invited the master of the tower in order to force Jeremiah to come, but Jeremiah was mad about it at first, but then he kind of was like, okay, I can accept this, because I really enjoy the experience of seeing how we're all very similar, particularly with that piece of food that it was like bread and something. They all like efficient food. They don't like spending so much time eating, so they all kind of prefer very bland meals at times. So it was funny when they were all like, oh, that's me, and it was like, no, it's actually me. Very cute moment. Anyways, so after this, we're now getting to the good part that we're all waiting for. Who is going to adopt Melody? Because of course, unfortunately, she can't just keep staying at the duchy in the way that she is. It's going to cause more bullying by like the other retainers, but also they're spreading rumors in society that are going to be very detrimental for her future. And so they work on a list, and on the list, people that are interested in adopting her are the Higgins family, which is the butler, Baron Higgins, and the head attendant, which is Mrs. Higgins. And she also comes from the family of Agnes. So Melody's new name is now Melody Agnes Higgins. I think I mentioned the family, and it was Agnes or Agnes, something like that. The head attendant's family is that, so they use that as her maiden name. So it will be Melody, and it won't be her, I believe. Wait, I think they did give it her as a middle name. Forget it. Okay, Melody's first name is Melody, and then middle name Agnes, and then last name Higgins. A very cute moment, especially because prior to that, the reason they were making the list much faster was because she was being bullied again by the man that did not deserve to have so much screen time. And this cute child who I was so upset. When I saw her, I was like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. She would be like the villainess that like hates them MC, and then like they get together and become like great friends. That is not gonna happen because this man completely ruined his child. Like she is so hateful for such a cute child. And even if she wasn't a cute child, it's just she is so hateful for such a young kid. Um and so that actually really affects Melody because from then on she doesn't want to be seen outside with Loretta, which is why Baron Higgins is really now trying to adopt Melody. He wants to give her the life that she really deserves, but he also really wants to adopt her. Like they both, Butler Higgins and the attendant, they really really care for her, and so they would love to adopt her. Um, so they end up doing that. So we now have a second face off at the art gallery with Tweedledum and his daughter, and he does the most asinine thing I've ever seen an adult do. It was to the point that his daughter was like, "Father, like conserve your dignity." Like he embarrasses everybody. All the nobles are just looking at this man like, did he just attack a child? But also his daughter is like quaking in the back because this is so like that's gonna ruin her entire debutante right there. Like they're gonna forever know her as the daughter of the crazy man that attacked a child in public. And not any child, because Baron Higgins is a like the Higgins family is a very, very well known family. And they're always the ones that served the Baldwin Duchy. And they have many like they have a lot of achievements and recognition, but they never wanted to be higher than a baron. So it's not like they're not powerful. They're actually very powerful. And so even though they're a baron, they're treated much higher. They're probably treated like a marquis family or something because of how many achievements they've had and how close they are to the Baldwin family. And even though like they're extremely loyal as well, they've always only ever served the duchy. And so people respect them a lot. So now Melody has the respect and the protection of her family, which I really appreciate. Let's actually talk about the experience of a woman that she causes a major accident in the city, and turns out to be a piece. She the entire thing is asking to be killed because she knows there's really nothing else for her. There's no solution. She's just a danger to everybody and herself. Um, there's a lot of great quotes from the webtoon that I'm going to put up here, how they explain it. Apparently the royal family does not take kindly to pieces, and so there's like everybody in society, they follow what the royal family's sentiment is, and so they're very demonizing of these people. And so that means that there's a baby in this entire thing, and the baby is quote unquote an orphan. She doesn't want to accept her child. She doesn't want to say that it is hers because again, that would make her child by default also a criminal. And it's a very sad experience. We have Jeremiah coming in through the investigation again, taking care of the child, and he's supposed to look through the child's memories in order to verify who the parent is. And he does, I believe. And the reason I say he does, I believe, is because I don't know if he needs to. He kind of like everybody already knows that this is her child. We don't really need to verify it. We understand why she's saying that it's not in order to protect him. But I guess he might have done it anyways. And he went up to her and he said like, "Hey, don't," because she starts saying before he arrives that that's not her child. She denounces him. That's not her child. That she just wants to die because the Duke explains to her that there's a way, like he's doing research. There might be a way to prevent her from having to be executed, as long as she's willing to go through the experiment. And she says, there is really no hope for me. And she decides she just wants to be executed. And so here comes Jeremiah. He's like, if this is what you've decided, at least give this child a good memory. Probably because Jeremiah understands that this child will retain this memory, particularly because of his high magic power. So this is where we learn that this child as well, just like Jeremiah, is very, very powerful, and probably was the reason that caused the mother, to start experiencing the magical fluctuations that she did. Her backstory is very sad, and they kind of really like stick the hammer in because they show you her life progression towards the end. So let me just go on with this section. He asks her that, and she does, and she also kind of hints like, you're not seeing me, you're seeing through me. Almost, you're seeing someone else through me. And it's very true. At this moment, this experience is also very traumatic for Jeremiah because he understands his mother and he can see her mother through her. Jeremiah is very strong to be able to go through this, and he also decides to accept this child as his apprentice. And we'll see the grown-up Evan, which is the apprentice's name, in the future. Not grown up, but like, a little older. And she says thank you so much because she knows that her child will always be protected as a magician. And she decides to go with the execution. The Duke is very kind and he kind of has someone clean her up so she can have dignity at the end. I really appreciated that because everybody, not the other magicians, but like the guards and stuff were like, oh, why does she need that? I'm like, sir, she's a human being. Her only crime is that her powers go out of control and it's not purposeful. It's because there's actually really, it's just a genetic disorder almost. So it's like, how is she to blame for something that happened to her because of chance? Anyways, enough of my spiel. She takes the poison. The person that gives it to her, the priest, is so, this man, you're gonna live in the worst circle of hell with the way you're so petty against people that have done nothing to you. But anyways, she takes it and she's just happy that her child is gonna be taken care of, and she wishes the best for Jeremiah and Evan. And then we see her experience, how she kind of got to this level to where she is now. She loses her husband after she gets pregnant, and then now Jeremiah is essentially a true orphan because they have this cute picture where she's like him and her, like her and her husband holding they're like the belly, and they're like so cute pose, and I'm just like, oh my god, really, you had to put that at the end to be continued? Oh, that's so oof. And I can just only imagine, like, we're gonna see more. This is what I'm saying, this webtoon is very heartfelt, very well executed. Nothing is rushed unnecessarily. They take their time even when you think they're like dragging on. Everything is well developed. um so after this point, we're now going to see the kids grown up. The first to see is Melody at 17, Isaiah, I believe, at like 21 or 22. And then we see everybody else through the cast. Cute Loretta, of course, 11 years old. Spicy as ever. Love that kid. um, and we also see Melody's journey, like what she's been working on since then. She wants to become, I think it's like, let me look up the name. I think is like a record keeper. She's trying to be a royal record keeper. She's taking a royal examination. And she's like one of the youngest people there. I think it's because it's not like a sexy job, but she's very interested in it due to the fact that the records helped her find her birthday, but also she when she, Cloud hurt his hand protecting her from the really hot water, which only took 2 days to heal, but he kind of wanted to give her something to do to take her mind off the stuff that was happening. She ended up writing and keeping records and like becoming a record keeper for the duchy, and her name was on it, and she will always be known as Melody of Baldwin. And so that was like a way to help her realize that what she can do in life is very important and she can leave her mark. And so she decides to become this for real. I was very proud of her for working through this. So cute. Anyway, she goes into the examination room. She does all the tour seeing and stuff like that. She goes to the examination room. And the first thing people say, which, these people, they're too close to reality and I want to punch them in the face. It's because she doesn't have a servant. She didn't want to take a servant. She just wanted to do the exam by herself. A lot of people take servants because you can use them during the exam because there's a lot of writing. And they assume that she's like super poor, that she's just like this backwaters girl from the country or whatever, and they already have all these assumptions and they treat her like whatever, like they isolate her a little bit, but it's not that deep. They go into the exam, right? And then all of a sudden, because she passed and they find out her full name, because they have to say the names, Melody Higgins, they're like, oh, life must be so easy for you to be a Higgins. I was like, hold on. At first, you thought she was from a poor family because she had no servants. And then she comes in, does well on the test, and now it's because she's a Higgins, not because of any of her efforts. Dear God. Oh, and there was this one guy, I'm going to put him up. Everything he kept saying was just like asinine. Anyway, she manages to pass the test. She goes through a few of them. And so she at first just like suspicious, like, why am I passing them? Like, I don't think I'm doing that great. But then she learns later on, like Cloud explains to her, your writing was probably very concise. They appreciate your writing to be the same, like the same font and everything when you're writing, so you're not rushing and you can keep pace. But also, you also know what you saw with your eyes. So they asked them a question about this eagle that was supposed to be like in the front of the thing, and they were supposed to write about it. And she wrote, I didn't see it. And she thought she failed because of that. But in fact, she passed because she didn't allow what anyone said, like warp her idea of what happened. For someone that does record keeping, they always have to stick with what they believe they saw. And so that's very important. You can't allow someone to convince you otherwise just because they said something. Whatever you saw is what you write. So I was like, oh, look at her. Oh, grown up. Great. And so we got that cute little part. And then we got this man again coming out because Looney and Isaiah go to this party. And he essentially is telling everybody, like, oh no, like, I don't know if the test was like done well. Essentially, it was cheated, like the Baron, blah blah blah, like Baron Higgins paid off this and this, or like the duchy paid off the people, which is very weird because these people wouldn't allow a person in later, and they have to be treated with so much respect even by the royal family. So for them to take a bribe from the duchy would make absolutely no sense. They take their jobs very seriously. We saw that in the beginning. For him to say this asinine thing because he failed, and also try to push Melody under the bus, ruin her entire like reputation in society, which again, rumors can destroy someone's lives, was just disrespectful. So clearly Isaiah and Looney throw this man their gloves and they're like, we're going for a duel, and then they beat this man in the middle of the party. Hilarious. Yeah, so we're getting now to like the most recent parts. Oh wait, I forgot something super important. So actually, Melody, being the smart little genius she is, she decides to tell the Duke about her. She calls it prophetic memories or prophetic dreams. Just kind of, I don't think she wanted to say she was like reincarnated or anything, but also she can't really prove that. So she tells him that she knew everything that was going to happen, that Loretta was his child and everything else, and like what happened between him and the Duchess. Because of these dreams. And then she also discloses to him like, hey, Loretta is just like her mother, she is also a piece. So now we also have a very specific timeline in which the family has to figure out how to save Loretta from essentially her powers going haywire. And so that's kind of like, I guess, the climactic moment that we're all going to look forward to. There's probably going to be much more, but I feel like I needed to include that because I missed it. But also because we're also looking for a particular child, which is the original male lead, who is the child of the king's brother, who was born from a maid. And he, like, when the king finds out in the original novel that his brother, who he exiled because he was kind of, I don't know if he was tricked or he really tried to usurp the throne, but he was kind of caught in the crossfires of these two people that tried to usurp the throne, which was, I think it was like the queen and her father, and they kind of like brought in the brother just like to make the king like, oh, everybody's guilty. And so instead of killing him, he exiled him away from everybody, and he couldn't have any children, but he did end up falling in love with the maid in his house and having a child. But the mother left right away to protect the child, and he kind of hid his child because he knows that if the king found out, his child and him would probably die. The king finds out, but what he does is kill his brother, I mean, in front of the child. This man, the king is just, I've never even met this man, but the fact that he did that, I was already like, and the way that he sees pieces, I'm like, you're just very unkind. I can understand a king being strict and stuff, but you're just unkind in general. You have, like, there is no particular reason for you to be so hateful. There's nothing, I mean, I understand the throne thing, but like, maybe if you've done more research and really saw, because from what is hinted at the storyline, the brother was never part of it. He just wouldn't believe his brother no matter what. But okay, whatever. I don't like this king. It is what it is. So in the story, in the original novels, the child gets taken in by the king and treated almost like a pest or whatever. Like he's just like in the background, like as an unwanted prince. And he kind of does that as revenge against his brother. But he's the male lead that is supposed to help Loretta, like somehow. They haven't gone into that part. I don't know if it's because his magic powers will also be like special, like melodies, or if that's not going to happen at all in this timeline because of Melody being like the way she is, because now she's changing the storyline. Like Melody in the story was not supposed to live as long as 17. She would have died like with her mother. But in this case, this version of Melody lives on. And so we'll see how that happens, because I don't know if Melody is actually the one that's supposed to save Loretta. Like her power could actually be healing to Loretta's bowl, like her magic bowl. That's what they call it here. So I'm going to keep saying the magic bowl. So we'll see what happens. But then we have an episode, oh, precious, precious Loretta, where she decides to go into the magic tower. And then we meet Evans, oh, the little apprentice. We also meet Jeremiah earlier because he has a conversation with what's her name, Melody. This was happening before the exam. I kind of skipped over it, but I feel like I need to bring it back because Loretta is as spicy as ever. Jeremiah puts her to sleep, and then he says, "Oh, like true love's kiss will bring her, will wake her up because she's supposed to take the exam the next day because she was so tired that he put her to sleep so like she could rest." And so Looney is like, "Oh my god, I don't know if I should kiss her. Like, what about decency and like all this stuff?" Loretta just comes out of nowhere and kisses Melody like the little prince she is, and she's like, "Yeah, she's awake." And Looney's just like, "My sister has no shame." It was the cutest scene, so I had to talk about that again. Anyway, she goes into the magic tower, which she really should not be around magic. That can really trigger her powers. So, but Loretta does whatever she wants. That's why I love her. But I'm also like, this might have not been a great idea because she gets grabbed by one of the crazy like researchers there, and he tries to make her have her powers tested, which could have been very detrimental to her. But anyways, Evan comes and saves the day, and now she's in the magic tower doing God knows what, being adorable, and I am worried because no one knows she's there. Anyways, if you're looking for a pretty well developed child rearing, adorable characters, like great chemistry between all the characters, responsible and logical adults that really care about the children, I would highly recommend this webtoon. And yeah, I will see you in the next video.